Mom, Dad, I humbly suggest you save some money and shop Amazon for back to school. It's for my growth, meaning my body's growing at an alarming rate. And clothes you buy me this year will be very small very soon. Plus, the clothes I love today will be out of style tomorrow. But at least your wallet doesn't have to be my fashion victim if you shop low prices for school at Amazon. Hopefully this is helpful. Amazon. Spend less, smile more.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today, I'm going to be talking about who the men are who get treated, quote, like kings, right? And so this is an extension of my post about who are the women that get treated like princesses, which I linked to in the description. And before we get to this, please do subscribe. Most recent subscriber episode was, remember, there's a little honeymoon stage every month, and there's almost 150 other episodes that are paid that you can get if you subscribe. So there are a lot of people on the internet that say things. My favorite interaction recently, there's all these guys who say, like, you got to get these are not my clients. These are just people on the internet that say that you have to get a woman from a different country so that she treats you like a king because, women from different countries are not as, they I guess don't know in theory that they can, do anything except that, and that's how they were raised and whatever. And then there was some guy who responded, and it sounded like it was from experience. And he said, no, if you get a woman from another country, it's like that at the beginning, but after that, it gets worse than it would have been with a woman from this country. So I guess the moral of the story is that the honeymoon stage fades for everybody. Including women from, quote, other countries, which I always just find so funny when guys say that. There is no female equivalent, by the way. I've never heard a woman say that she needs a man from another country who knows how to treat women better. But who knows? I mean, that would be certainly never say never. Maybe I will see that in the comments too. I don't know what country that would be. I guess the equivalent is there are women who think accents are really cute, like British accents. So, I mean, maybe it's that. But the point is, that if you're trying to hack the system and get treated like a king without understanding who really gets good treatment from their wives, then you will probably end up in as bad a situation as that poor man who tried to get a woman from a different country and then she ended up not liking him anyway. And you can see plenty of this if you do like 90 Day Fiance or things like this. Those relationships are not perfect either. So the point is that much like in my post about women who get treated like princesses, the people who get treated well are the people who treat their partner well. I just cannot say this enough. If you are expecting that you can be negative and annoying and just selfish, and then you're going to get some woman who treats you like a king, you're talking about a certain kind of relationship called a low self-esteem woman in the honeymoon phase. That's what that is. So you're going to get a low self-esteem woman who doesn't think she deserves to be treated well and is terrified to lose you, and she's still in the honeymoon stage where she puts you on a pedestal. Women with borderline personality disorder, for example, have zero, confidence in themselves usually, and will try to find a fairly narcissistic, selfish man that they could kind of hitch their wagon to. And after a little while, this will turn into a volatile, horrible mess when he falls off the pedestal. So if you don't want that, if you want long-term to get treated like a king, which of course to most men means sex and physical touch and kindness and laughing at his jokes and stuff, what does that mean you have to do? That means that you yourself have to be a kind, loving, responsible guy. Otherwise, any woman is going to eventually realize that you're a dick and she's not going to treat you well. So the same thing with women. So there's like a lot of women who are mad at the world because of the way that they were treated as kids, and which I feel for them, and they had difficult time, and they saw their mother get treated like shit by their father usually. And then they say, oh, any woman who gets treated well by a man, she's probably exploiting him in some way, or she's taking advantage of him in some way, or it's just not even true, and that doesn't even really happen. Of course it happens. Of course women get treated really well by their husbands. But those are the women who are nice to their husbands. So a lot of people want a free lunch, and this is no, I say all the time, there's no free lunch. You cannot just like obtain, a human being that will treat you like royalty without you having to be that way in return, at least not past the first couple of years. And at that point, that person will leave you, if you do not, if they grow at all in their self-confidence, like I discussed in my prior podcast, why does your marriage tank when your mental health improves? Well, if there are people, and there are, who will treat you very well in the absence of being treated well themselves, then as soon as they grow a little bit in the confidence domain, they're going to be out of this relationship. So what sort of men get treated like kings? Men who are kind, men who are loving, men who are generous emotionally, not financially, emotionally. Men who think everything is about money, that's usually because they were raised by parents who are fixated on money, women, mothers and fathers who called women gold diggers, et cetera, et cetera. So what I mean is generous emotionally. So somebody who's not nitpicking, somebody who's not playing devil's advocate, somebody who's not negative and critical. There is no woman with any self-esteem who's going to treat a man well when he's picking at her, criticizing her, saying negative things about her all the time, or really at all, like calling her any names or making fun of her. And there are many men who do this. It's interesting too, when I am, as a social media presence, I see that it attracts the most negative people, right, who comment. Either it's people who try to be supportive, which is very nice, but if there are people who are negative, it's like, what kind of man sits there and goes onto a random woman's Facebook, and says negative shit? How's that man going to be in his marriage, right? Like think about it, is there a human being in the world that's like a loving man in a relationship and like a great husband and a great dad, but just has this like cute, quirky hobby of just going on women's social media and being like, you're terrible and you're wrong and you're ugly? I mean, like, no, like we all know that, right? But yet, and I'm not saying that anybody who's listening to certainly at least the paid version of this podcast, because paywalls really do weed out people who are trolls. But this is a free one. Still, though, I mean, anybody who's going to listen to like this, I don't know, I would doubt are the same people that are trolling on social media. But think about it. Like, those guys, they say all women suck. My wife cheated on me. Like, and everything that you write and you say is stupid. So it's like right there, you could see, why did things go bad? Why did this guy not get treated well? And I don't believe that he's lying. I believe the woman did cheat, right? But still, you don't turn into a very difficult, mean, critical person. Everybody doesn't turn into that because somebody cheated on them, right? So most people are like, oh, that's unfortunate. That was a bad relationship, and I'm going to pick myself up and move forward, after I grieve, process, etc. Most people don't turn super bitter. So the people that are super bitter after something bad are usually the people that were super bitter before. And that could have led to something bad happening, right? Where they get into relationships that are very volatile and contentious, where things happen like cheating and lying and all sorts of things. So if you are a bitter or critical person, and how can you tell? Are you mean to anyone? Basically anyone, from like random people on the internet to road raging at people to your kids when they don't do what they want, what you want. Are you kind of a mean, impatient, critical man? Then you're not going to get treated like a king by your wife if she has an ounce of self-esteem or self-worth, because you're not nice. So the hack here, it's like the women who try to say, oh, there's a lot of ways to be a good wife without touching my husband. No, there's not. There's really not. Those things don't exist. That's fiction. That's not real. There are not ways to be a good wife without touching your husband, just like you can't be a good mother to a baby without touching the baby. So I say it straight out and very clear. There's also no way to be a good husband if you are critical and negative. There's just not. If you're cold, critical, negative, demeaning, any of these things, really to anyone in your life, because a lot of men try to pretend to themselves that they're not that way to their wife, but they'll recognize it like, oh yeah, I'm a great husband, but like I'm impatient with the kids. I have terrible road rage. I've been written up at work. My work evaluations are that I'm not a team player. I used to get into fights when I was a boy. No, then you're not a nice person. You could be a nice person in your heart, but somehow your behavior is not that of a nice person. So the number one way to find somebody who will treat you like a king is to treat them like a queen. And you can't be like that if you're negative, critical, nasty, impatient, cold, any of these things. I have a podcast called Most Men Don't Criticize Their Wives in Bed, and how you ended up in a dynamic where that would happen, something like that. Because most men don't. Most men are like, all right, my wife loves me, we're having sex, and they take kind of a positive spin on it. Is it the most exciting thing that ever happened? No. But you know what? She's trying in her way, and I love her. That's like the securely attached people, how they think about sex being boring. But people who are very negative and critical, they'll give their wife like a 5 bullet point things that you should improve after every sexual performance. A woman who stays with that man hates him. She hates herself more because she's, has low self-esteem enough to stay in that situation, but she hates him too on some level, and therefore she will not treat him well because he's kind of a bastard, And so that is really the TLDR here, and it's not a lot of people that I see in counseling, because for somebody to get into counseling, they have to be somewhat open-minded, although it is some guys who get dragged in by their wives, right, are really just assholes, and they're always assholes because they got treated bad themselves. So it's not like you can't change. It's not like you can't grow to be a man that a woman would want to treat well. You certainly can, but you have to know what you're starting off with. What you're usually starting off with is that if she doesn't treat you well, you treat her a lot less well than you think you do. Because it's a very common conceit to make up that you're the martyr and she unilaterally treats you poorly, but you treat her well. She treats you like shit, but you treat her well. I see that so rarely, man. I really do. I see that so rarely. So rarely do I see it. And I talk about it like the martyr and the ice queen, or all my preoccupied avoidance stuff. So if you're a preoccupied attachment guy and you're always following your wife around asking if she loves you, you think you're being nice? You're not. You're being very selfish, self-centered, irritating, needy, and women do it too. So the woman that follows her husband around being like, you don't love me enough, well, shit, no wonder, because you're being so difficult all the time. So the first thing, and I say this with love, tough love, the first thing if you're preoccupied attachment is to work on your own self-confidence, and if you can work on that and can get to a place where you're not like basically co-creating a dynamic that will continually disappoint you, because the more that you're up somebody's ass saying, do you love me? Do you love me? The less they do. Because you're bothering them so much all the time. And you could listen to all my stuff on preoccupied attachment husbands, because what we're talking about in this specific podcast is why you don't get treated like a king. Well, if you're a preoccupied attachment guy, you may think you're treating her well because you're, quote, focusing on the relationship. You're not treating her well. You're not giving her any space to be a person. You're not being supportive of her being her own human being. Every time she wants to go do something with friends or by herself or rejects you for sex, you're a total asshole about it. So in those cases, of course, she's not going to want to be going out of her way to treat you well. Just like men don't treat women like princesses if the woman is just a real bitch to them all the time. It's just, if the woman is always kind of up their ass criticizing them, nothing is ever good enough, why would they go out of their way to make her life romantic and wonderful? Where they're not that stupid, right? She may call them stupid, but they're not that stupid to go and try to make her happy when it's obvious that she's never happy with them anyway. So the first thing, if you want to be treated like a king, is to make sure that you're treating your wife like a queen. And if you are, And you got and then you got to think, how do I treat other people in the world? Because if you think you treat her like a queen, but then there's all these other people around that engage with you in ways where you are obviously not being very nice, and you've ever gotten that feedback from anybody else, then you may not be treating her as well as you think. If you're generally considered to be a difficult person, a critical person, then it's odds are that you're not treating her as well as you think you are, because you need to work on that core aspect of your personality, which is likely there because you were treated like that as a kid, because you got yelled at a lot and criticized, et cetera, et cetera. All right, I hope you found this interesting. This would be a good one to introspect about, to bring to your therapist, and to think about if it at all made you re-examine your expectations and situate them differently. More like, hey, wait, should I really get this thing that I think that I deserve? Do I really? All right, I'll talk to everybody soon. Have a great day, guys.